Imagine waking up at 3 in the morning, not because your alarm went off, not because your child is crying, but because someone's father is dying on a table in front of you, and the equipment you need to save him is broken. That is not a scene from a movie. That is a Tuesday night in a Philippine public hospital, and the doctor standing in that room, by next year, they might be standing in a hospital in London instead. This is the hidden crisis, and it is time we talked about it. The Philippines is losing its lifesavers, not because they want to go, not because they stopped loving this country, not because they forgot where they came from. They are leaving because a system that was supposed to protect them failed them. Every single year, thousands of Filipino doctors, nurses, and medical professionals board international flights with their diplomas in their bags and their hearts in conflict. They are not running away from the Philippines. They are running towards something the Philippines refuses to give them: safety, stability, dignity. And while they go, public hospitals get shorter on staff. Provinces lose their only surgeon. Patients wait longer. And some of them don't make it. We are not talking about statistics here. We are talking about real people, real families, real Filipinos who lined up in a government hospital, trusting a system that was supposed to be there for them. This is the cost of brain drain, and we are paying it every single day. Before we talk about the politics, let's talk about the people. Because it's easy to reduce this to numbers and reports and government memos. But behind every doctor who leaves, there is a story. There is a 22-year-old who chose medicine over engineering because they wanted to serve. There is a woman who studied through brownouts and borrowed money for review materials and passed one of the most difficult board exams in the country on sheer will alone. There is a man who worked 36-hour hospital shifts during a pandemic without proper PPE, without hazard pay arriving on time, without so much as a public apology when the system let him down. Filipino doctors are not weak. They are some of the most highly trained, deeply compassionate, fiercely adaptable medical professionals in the entire world. They survive intense training that would break most people. They carry the weight of under-resourced hospitals on their shoulders. They adapt, they improvise, they show up. The problem was never their dedication. The problem is what they come home to after a 24-hour shift. Outdated equipment, overcrowded wards, salaries that arrive late, if they arrive at all, and a government that treats healthcare funding like a budget footnote instead of a national priority. That is not a workforce problem. That is a leadership problem. Now let's say the uncomfortable word corruption, and before anyone changes the channel or scrolls past this video, stay with me. Because this is not about political sides. This is not about red versus blue, or which administration you support. This is about what happens to real money, meant for real hospitals, serving real people. Healthcare budgets get approved, funding gets allocated, and then somewhere between the legislation and the hospital floor, it disappears. Corruption is not just a political concept. Corruption is a broken ventilator that should have been replaced 2 years ago. Corruption is an empty medicine cabinet in a public hospital that supposedly received a full supply last quarter. Corruption is a delayed salary for a doctor who served during a typhoon because the disbursement got held up in processing. Corruption is a hospital administrator driving a brand new vehicle while nurses share one functioning blood pressure monitor between 3 wards. This is where the money goes. This is why the best equipment is found in private hospitals that poor Filipinos cannot afford. This is why public health care in the Philippines continues to collapse quietly, while politicians pose for ribbon-cutting ceremonies at facilities that are half-functional. And our doctors see this every day. They see the gap between what was promised and what was delivered. And eventually, many of them decide they would rather build a life somewhere that actually values what they do. Can you blame them? Let me paint the picture clearly. The United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, Germany, these countries are not just accepting Filipino healthcare workers. They are actively, aggressively recruiting them. They send representatives. They offer licensing pathways. They make it easier to come than to stay. And what do they offer? Competitive salaries. We are talking multiples, not just slightly higher. multiples of what a government doctor earns here. Modern facilities with equipment that actually works. Clear career progression where merit is rewarded and not just seniority or connections. Legal protections that mean if something goes wrong at work, there is a system that will fight for you. Now put yourself in that doctor's shoes. You studied for a decade. You sacrificed your 20s. You served during COVID without adequate protection. You watched colleagues get infected. Some of them died. And after all of that, your government cannot guarantee you basic security. Leaving is not betrayal. Leaving is survival. And the moment we as Filipinos start understanding that distinction, the moment we stop shaming doctors for going and start demanding better from the system that drove them away, that is the moment real change becomes possible. Leadership is not made of speeches. Leadership is not made of press releases or social media infographics about healthcare milestones. Leadership is made of systems. It is made of accountability. It is made of a government that treats healthcare as a sacred obligation, not an election promise. When healthcare budgets are mismanaged, the message is sent. When infrastructure projects absorb funding that should go to hospitals, the message is sent. When corruption investigations are opened and then quietly closed and then forgotten, the message is sent. And that message says, healthcare workers are not the priority. Hardworking Filipino taxpayers line up in public hospitals. They trust that the money they contribute to this system will come back to them when they need it most. But trust cannot survive in an environment where accountability is selective. Trust cannot survive where the people who expose corruption face more consequences than the people who commit it. And when trust breaks down, doctors leave, nurses leave, entire families reconsider their futures here, and the nation is left weaker for it. A government that cannot protect its doctors, cannot fully protect its people. Let's set emotion aside for a moment and talk economics. Because for those who need hard numbers to care, this one is undeniable. Training a single doctor in the Philippines costs millions of pesos in subsidized education, publicly funded institutions, government licensing infrastructure, and public hospital training rotations. That investment comes from Filipino taxpayers. It comes from your taxes, my taxes, the taxes of every working Filipino who contributes to this country. When that doctor leaves for another country, that country collects the return on our investment. Australia gets a world-class cardiologist. The Philippines loses one. The UK gets an ICU specialist. A rural Philippine province loses its only one. This is brain drain in its most painful form. And brain drain does not hurt the wealthy. The wealthy go to private hospitals. The wealthy fly to Singapore for surgery. Brain drain kills the poor. It empties rural health centers. It eliminates specialized care for communities that have no alternatives. It stretches remaining healthcare workers to their absolute limits until they too burn out and leave. This is not a theoretical future. This is happening right now. I want to take a moment to honor something. The Filipino spirit in healthcare is extraordinary. Nurses who show up even when their salaries are 2 months delayed. Doctors who work in facilities held together by resourcefulness and prayer. Medical technologists, healthcare aides, midwives in barangay health centers, doing the work of 3 people because there are no 3 people. They show up even when leadership disappoints, even when the system is broken, even when the hospital has no running water and the generator has not been serviced in 18 months. They show up. But here is what we need to say out loud. Resilience should never be an excuse for abuse. When a government knows that Filipino healthcare workers will endure almost anything and uses that knowledge to justify underfunding, underprotecting, and undervaluing them, that is not leadership. That is exploitation, and it needs to stop. Sacrifice deserves to be honored with structure. Loyalty deserves to be met with protection. Hard work deserves more than applause and a meme on National Doctors' Day. So what do? We do not sit with this information and feel bad for 5 minutes and then scroll to the next video. We do something with it. First, we demand transparency. Every peso allocated to public healthcare should be traceable and publicly reported. No more black holes in the budget. No more, it's being processed. Show us the money. Show us where it went. Show us who is accountable. Second, we demand compensation reform now. Not a study, not a committee, not a task force that meets 3 times and produces a PDF nobody reads. Competitive pay on time, every time non-negotiable. Third, we modernize public hospitals. Not just the ones near camera crews, not just during election season, all of them. The ones in Samar, the ones in Sulu, the ones in Lanao. Every Filipino deserves a functioning hospital regardless of their zip code. Fourth, we protect our frontline workers legally, physically, and financially. When a nurse is assaulted in a public hospital, which happens more than anyone reports, there must be real, immediate consequences. When a doctor speaks out about systemic failure, they should be protected as a whistleblower, not silenced as a troublemaker. Fifth, and most importantly, we show up as citizens. We vote for people who treat healthcare as a right and not a favor. We amplify the voices of doctors and nurses who speak out. We stop normalizing a system that eats its healers alive. We share this, we talk about this. We refuse to let this be a quiet crisis, because here is the truth. If the best doctors continue to leave, the crisis will not arrive with sirens and announcements. It will arrive quietly, a longer wait at the emergency room, 1 fewer specialist in the province, a mother who needed surgery, and the surgeon had already booked a flight. The Philippines does not lack talent. It does not lack dedication. It does not lack heart. What it lacks is a leadership that treats the people who save lives as if their lives also matter. And that is the hidden crisis. Because when healers are forced out by a system that was supposed to protect them, the question is no longer political. It becomes personal. Who will be left to save us? The answer starts with what we choose to do next. If this moved you, share it. Someone needs to hear this today. Drop a comment, tag someone in healthcare. And if you are a doctor or nurse watching this, we see you, we honor you, and we are fighting for the system you deserve.